So today we have Bernhard Drax, or Draxtor de Prey, as you know him via his avatar here, and he is an award-winning producer who creates interactive audio, video, films, and other new media things. And he has also produced music as well. He's a musician, and he's going to talk to us, and television stuff too. I produced, right? And maybe, possibly. And he has a solid background in radio and news, and has been doing. You've probably been following his reportages and streaming for many years now. And obviously, he's even made a little one of those about Nonprofit Commons itself. I can link that a little later if folks want to see what he did about Nonprofit Commons as our community. And today he's here as a discussion about, and I'll put that text shut in as well. He's here about a discussion about his recently produced documentary, Our Digital Selves, My Avatar and Me, chronicling the research of
My Avatar is Me.
My Avatar is Me, sorry. Yes, which actually My Avatar and Me is another film, funny enough.
That's right, that's a Dane from Denmark. That's actually a very good film too.
Yeah.
I looked that up, but that is.
At SLCC, we had I had him. He came to the SLCC. We had him do a film screening there and all that good stuff. But yes, different film. So Our Digital Selves, My Avatar is Me, and that's based off of research from Donna Davis and Tom Bollerstoff, and Tom is actually here in the audience on their embodiment and identity in placemaking in virtual worlds. And I'm going to put a little blurb about that in as well. And their work features around virtual worlds, disability, and new cultures of the embodied self. Is a research project with two principal investigators, Tom Bollerstoff and Donna Davis, as we said. The research is supported by the University of California, Irvine, and the University of Oregon, as well as a grant from the National Science Foundation, the Cultural Anthropology and Science, Technology, and Society branch of that. And here's a link to their main site of their research. The researchers launched their community ethnographia, which you'll actually see a lot of or reference a lot of in the film. And ethnographia is here in Second Life, and they launched it 3 years ago, creating a safe space for qualitative discussion and research, and then also of the individual experiences of anyone in Second Life who either identified or is identified as disabled, and the resulting documentary presents people in their own words. And if you have not watched it yet, which hopefully you have, the link that I just put in is to that. And hopefully today we'll get to ask questions of Draxtor. So we could probably start things off, Drax, with anything you want to share to kind of set the stage for that, and then we can kind of get into like questions after that. Sound good? So whatever you want to start out with first, and then we'll do questions.
Well, I actually just did sort of, I always call it post-game or exit interview, I guess, with Tom a few days ago, reminiscing or reflecting on the process of this film, and where Tom asked me questions, and I had to actually think about, usually I ask the questions to other people, which can be daunting, but sometimes it's also a little easier. The film follows 13 protagonists of this 30-plus group that Tom and Trady were leading in the ethnographia group, and some appear in physical form, some only consented to being seen as avatars. And while I was talking to Tom, it occurred to me again what I felt in the beginning is that we have an incredible opportunity with this film. The opportunity with the research is huge, but let's be honest, there are certain circles who who will devour this research, and there is a whole big group out there. They will never lay eyes on anything that is of that complexity for whatever reason. I'm not digging my own grave here. I don't want to say that people are not interested in deep material, but audiovisual material is reaching people in other ways and better ways. And the big opportunity now that this film is done, and I felt about this like this in the beginning, but now I feel so relieved that we succeeded, I think, with this film. At this juncture, where there's new worlds coming online, new immersive worlds, next generation worlds, whatever you want to call them, meeting worlds with headset compatibility, that we were able to make this film and show Second Life, how Second Life is just, I mean, we all know it's unique and powerful, but, you know, there's some stuff from Sansar and High Fidelity in this film too, and it becomes very clear in the film that the secret sauce that Second Life is made of, or it's poured over Second Life, oh god, my metaphors are terrible, is you know, it's not yet replicated, and I don't know if it ever will be. And the validity and the power of Second Life is not diminishing at all with the advent of these technologies, and that is, I think, one of the wonderful messages of the film. And of course, by extension, the people who make Second Life what it is are also, you know, they themselves have lost nothing of their creative energy, and that's depicted in there. And when I say opportunity to make this film, what I mean by that is the snapshot that we're able to take the snapshot and keep it out there on YouTube, hopefully for a long time to come, for people to look back at it and reflect on it, and wherever the technology may lead us, to look at this 20 years, 30 years, whatever, and look at this and go like, wow, you know, people, some things just don't change. Really, at the core of everything is a human story, and yeah, it's just I'm very happy how it turned out, and I'm very happy about how it's being seen, and what people actually that I don't know, many people that I don't know have commented on YouTube in detail, and with big thank yous that they were encouraged by that. And I also know that Linda that put that out there, we're getting a lot of great feedback, so I'm so grateful to the people who opened up to me. And you know, I mean, we talked about this before, it's not easy to find the trust and then open up about your personal life like that. And so documentary filmmakers are would be unemployed if people wouldn't open up. Incidentally, most documentary filmmakers are unemployed anyways. So very funny. But I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You first off, you bring up the special sauce. You know, I definitely think that, as you say, you know, the heads-up display worlds, that we're not seeing that yet. You know, I remember even long ago, back to the old Avatar thing, in 2007, 8, at one of the SLCCs, I think it was Chicago, which was the largest one. It was probably
2007, Chicago. Yeah, that was my first one. Yeah.
Yeah, which was the biggest of all of them. There were almost 1,000 people there that year.
That's right. And I remember that Phil was saying, like, he had the T-shirt that says "missing image" or "missing texture" or something.
Yes, yes, missing image. Yeah, it's the same. It's what used to show up if you were Avatar mode. So as part of that, the MacArthur Foundation, which, you know, we can talk further about the idea of these institutions sponsoring work like this, work like your documentary, and other things like that. But the MacArthur Foundation sponsored kind of a philanthropic slash kind of educational nonprofit track of the conference of SLCC. And Connie Yowell, who was the educational director of MacArthur Foundation at the time, you know, I loved her succinct, like, that, you know, the secret sauce of Second Life was kind of the community piece. I mean, I think it's also a little bit broader than that, but the idea that people piece, as you said, is important. That's a big piece of it. I think go on.
Yeah, and you know, but this can be seen as some, you know, okay, I mean, of course, the people, you know, you feel, you know, what is a nice town square? You look at the architecture a little bit, and you put people in it, and without people, it's just a piece of architecture. I mean, it goes kind of about, it's kind of like really basic understanding. But what is so fascinating is that when you observe what's happening now, again, with headsets and stuff like that, we see that the headsets, for example, are not selling to the extent that the industry thought they were going to sell. And actually, Tom, you know, said this too. I actually don't know if it's in the movie, but the headsets are a technology. They're not.
Yeah,
they're an interface to look into things, right? They're not the thing itself. But so that the industry seems so self-assured when you talk to representatives from Silicon Valley, acknowledges that they come across incredibly confident that this will change everything. You know, I mean, this is a trope. I mean, in many ways. Sometimes you feel the TV show Silicon Valley, the real Silicon Valley is very similar. You know, game changer, whatnot, and the terminology. So, again, I mean, I'm really proud, and I'm happy that we have this document now that's out there that will that shows the significance, the historic significance, the significance in the present time, and for the foreseeable future of Second Life. And that's just awesome. I mean, I don't have to tell you how people are not, you know, it's hard to get onto the radar of the press, even, because for them Second Life is done. The cool thing is that actually people talk more about Second Life now in the context with this new stuff.
Yep.
So I also hope that these stories are getting out, again, not because of me at all. It's like Lady says in the movie. I actually just saw Lady teleport in here. That's my favorite quote. She says, I'm 65 years old, and I have... Oh, here's Lady. I hope I don't misquote you, but she said...
I think she said she was 61 or 62, so now you're making her older. But go on.
Oh, my God. Oh, that is the biggest crime. But she says that I have the right to express myself, you know, the way I want to. And she doesn't specify it in this quote. If it's, you know, it's kind of implied, I think, expressing herself in engaging in Second Life and having an avatar and doing this, although it may be ridiculed. Express myself and be heard. There you go. That's it. That sums up the entire film. Because, you know, I want to say one more thing. So I sent this out. Actually, my wife sent it out to a friend of ours. She is... That's one of those friends who is sort of violently against Second Life whenever I do. That's one of those who really feels, or expressed to me when I bring it up, that engaging or even thinking about it is going to bring about the end of mankind and culture as a whole. Which is very sad, because she's actually a gallerist. She owns galleries, and she sells art, and it's wonderful. She's a real patron of very, very strange avant-garde art and music, and wife of my former boss at the radio station in California. Somebody who I highly respect. but she's just totally against it. I sent her this. She sent me an email back and said, "Wow, this is I really understand." And yeah, and I don't know. I mean, Thomas also at the end, also the meta discussion. If you haven't seen the film, there's a little sort of meta lection that we filmed in Ansar. Well, Cinia says that's PG in Pacific Grove. This woman is not from Pacific Grove. This woman has lived all over the world. She has galleries in Germany and in Los Angeles and in Africa. A really world travel. She left PG because of exactly that reason. But it doesn't matter. See, with Cinia is what she's saying. PG stands for Pacific Grove, which is a very small town. And so that's what I'm saying. It's completely irrelevant. You know, we all have these encounters where people are dismissive of Second Life. I don't see any correlation between them, so-called, I don't know, hinterlanders or whatnot, and world traveled folks. I don't see a correlation at all. I see it's somewhat random. It's almost like a little drinking game that you could play. You people on the street, what do you think about Second Life? And some people who you don't expect, they say, wow, I understand it. It's overcoming isolation. It's art. And somebody else says, it's the end of the world. But the last point was that Tom says in the meta discussion that what is regrettable if people frame or try to make sense of Second Life by seeing it as filling a need. So if you're physically disabled, of course Second Life is great because of that avatar. This is sort of crutch that people have, like, oh, this is so absurd and weird. And yeah, wait, now I understand. And here comes Trady with the books at the printing press. Well, yeah. So to end this thought here is that my friend, the gallerist, if she saw it in this context, or if she understood it now in the context of people with disabilities finding ways to fulfill their lives, then so be it. I certainly did not intend to frame the narrative that way.
Yeah.
I certainly tried my best not to go like, look guys, I know you think it's weird, but look at these poor people. Because that's the worst. You know what? Now I'm getting started. Please interrupt me. Because I also think, for example, I just talked about this yesterday. I think, for example, if we talk about the refugee crisis in Europe, it's a real mistake to talk about it like, oh, look at this model, because my wife is doing work with refugees, unaccompanied minors, and we have one guy, he's from Afghanistan. He taught himself German in a Greek refugee camp while, like 90 degrees heat in a freaking tent with 10 other people. And so this somebody with enormous discipline, and so it's like this model refugee. I find it difficult. It's a slippery slope when we start talking about, oh yeah, we should, look at this guy. This is a well-adjusted dude. We got to take people in, because that opens you in the debate that somebody will undoubtedly will say, oh yeah, but look at these others. They're criminals and they're lazy.
Yeah.
So I started to always talk about the moral obligation that we have towards other people when it comes to this refugee thing or other types of discussions. And I think in Second Life it's similar, right? That's how we should, why would, who cares if somebody is disabled? This is a wonderful world and everybody is welcome, and yeah.
Yeah, no, it's larger than that, right? It's bigger than that, definitely. You brought up Lady, and that little piece that when she was sort of kind of talking to you about the vulnerable, you sort of asked her about the vulnerable aspect of it, that she was saying things to you in the course of, you know, the interviews and that this was going to be shown, and then that's when she sort of said back that comment about the you know, well, I'm 61 and you know I'm just going to put it out there. But as a documentary filmmaker, I mean that's kind of something like you're always engaging with that, like making people vulnerable, getting that trust. I mean that kind of process. So it would be interesting to like talk a little bit about that because that's a huge piece of this.
Every documentary filmmaker will tell you that the most important thing, other than finding protagonists, is time, and you need to invest that time. So each one, I mean, this was actually a very fast turnaround for a documentary of this scope. There are people, friends of mine, they work on this stuff for 5, 6, 7 years, and that's not unheard of. And the reason is because you need to really, it just doesn't happen overnight to get deep into somebody's life, and I wouldn't even pretend to really know my protagonists like inside out. I really don't. But I have a good sense of what drives them. I know if I had another year, this would be a very different film. But with the resources that I had available, I structured it such that I did 3 rounds of interviews and then a few pickups. So people had the opportunity to talk to me like a second time around and then a third time. And so there were a month, 2 months in between where we worked on other things. And in many instances, let me just say about, for example, Daisy, our tiny alligator, there is a shift. There's a lot. Shifts happen, which is also complicating the production. But like my hero Werner Herzog, German filmmaker who did narrative fiction and also non-fiction documentary, as Werner Herzog once, for example, said, "Storyboards are for cowards." And what he means by that is that when you map it out like that and you lock yourself in too much, and he was talking about actually scripted narrative fiction film. Even there, he doesn't do storyboards. He knows the story. He knows the set. He creates the set. But he does not plan out every shot. And that's how I've always done it with all the smaller, shorter films, and I've done it with this one. Because the set, things will happen on the set that you don't know are going to happen. So actually, I want to talk about Daisy, because so the structure, people change they don't change their opinion, but they deepen their points or they shift slightly. So I only had 3 rounds of interviews available per person, and with some actually less, because it's also a real logistical issue with people all over the world. With Daisy, the second interview, the first one she was reserved, but she was open. With the second interview, she was very reserved, and I said, "Daisy, what's going on?" That, you know what I thought about this. I don't know if I should participate because you know the media talk about disabled people always the same way. That, and I know I trust you because I've seen your stuff. And then I said, you know, Daisy, let's incorporate this into the film. And please write out how you feel about this. How do you feel about this? You're a writer. Write it out, 2 minutes long, a little essay. How do you feel about how the media in general treats disabled people? And then she wrote that up, and that's what we did in the film. We visualized her little essay where she talks about how she doesn't trust the media because they always depict disabled people sort of like sitting there alone in their room, being depressed. And then we built a set, had rain, and I played the disabled guy watching The Price is Right in a dilapidated hotel, and Daisy played a director sitting there and filming this. So this is the wonderful opportunity that only Second Life can afford us. That's how we visualize these anecdotes, and so something came out of this. I wouldn't call it change of heart, because then Daisy in the third interview was opening up again more, and so that's just how the process works.
Yeah, it's sort of this sort of letting the people and the characters take you as you go, and adding depth maybe to something that you didn't see on the first interviews, I would imagine.
But it's also incorporating them. I also would say the collaborative aspect of this. So you roll with the punches like this, okay? And it's frightening because you don't know where it's gonna go, and but you roll with the punches, and you hope that it will be somehow coherent at some point. But you also involve the protagonists. There's tons of different philosophies in documentary filmmaking, how much to involve them. I know where I want to go, and I have very clear opinions, but I really don't see myself as a dictator either. It's difficult.
It's a process. Certainly. I mean,
it's a process. You need to. Sorry, yeah. I'm stepping you. But one more sentence.
No, it's okay.
If I have one, people always say like, when you grow older, there's certain things you learn, and this is certainly not a new insight. But I realize for myself, what is really actually cool is that I embrace the process a lot more, and that was not the case. And I think that's just normal, sort of developmental. Super basic developmental psychology. I'm still goal-oriented, and I'm very sort of fixated, and sometimes I can drive people nuts with deadlines and pressure that I put myself under. But at the same time, I just embraced the process a lot more than I did when I was younger. So in other words, I drove more people crazy when I was younger, and now I drive less people. Tom I drove crazy, but I think he's built he's built like a Nebraskan oxen. They have him there. Yeah.
That's funny. Certainly. I know. I mean, obviously, those of us that were part of the nonprofit commons community, that were part of your smaller, sort of little video film that you did for us on us, had that back, and like getting a first-hand view of what that process is like, and there is a lot of back and forth. And,
but that was very structured, I mean,
that was a lot more
from the beginning where it's gonna go. And actually, there's an older one also,
which that one I think was even more so.
Yeah,
that was like scripted and like
that was totally scripted from top to bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's you've seen that, and I wonder if it's just I mean, as you said, time does it. Also, you've been doing a lot more free form streaming, of things like whether in Sansar or other places, and I think that kind of lends you to.
That was part of that's part of the research. The part of the research was that Tom and Trady had available funds to send out headsets, and so they wanted to investigate like what does that do to protagonists, and some can't even the headsets are very, I mean, they're not really comfortable for able-bodied people. So that was part, and I wouldn't call it freeform, by the way. I would call it's a structured process where I laid out in the beginning, and because Clay LeSue was asking how long it take to make the film, and that goes into answering this question. So there is, it's structured in the sense that I know exactly how long I can afford myself to gather material, and when is the end to gather the material, and then I make exceptions if somebody comes like and say, I totally forgot this or that. But there is a very structured process. There is a period of observation, then there is then sort of the gathering of this material, and then took 2 weeks or so to actually transcribe all the interviews by hand. I have 5 notebooks where I put
just from this,
just that stuff, and a lot of people do it differently. A lot of people do it digitally because then they can search it. They can search for the keywords. That doesn't work for me. I actually highly recommend writing this out by hand and having notebooks, because then you work differently. You go back in the notebook. Again, I mean, I have audio material, I have video material. So then I watch those videos, I listen to the audio, I have the timer go, and I can see like at 2 minutes 15 seconds, lady says XYZ, and then I write this stuff down. Not verbatim, I summarize it a little bit, and then I underline stuff, but that process is super important, and then something works in your brain, and it already kind of puts little puzzle mosaic pieces together, and so that takes 2 weeks. I was gonna say, I started following the group, I think in July, maybe 2017. So it's a little less than a year. And the big thing was we had the opportunity to visit people. Also in San Francisco, of course, Linden Lab and High Fidelity, but also a few protagonists, Kyla in Chicago, and Cody in Los Angeles, and also Varahi in England. So I stayed there a couple days. So I would say it's roughly a year, maybe. Yeah, a little bit less. But it's not one more thing, it's not, and it can't be, it's not a full-time job. So other stuff goes parallel. This was certainly prioritized, especially in sort of the hot phase of post-production, where Marianne McCann, who built all the sets. Oh, I visited Solus in California too, yeah. Solus is so important, I always forget her. That's just how important she is. Marianne built all the sets, and so this is another logistical thing. That's then executing those stories and filming and then piecing it together. So I didn't have an editor. A lot of people that work in documentary, they just, they film, they go in the field, they film the stuff, and they hand it off to somebody who transcribes, and they hand it off to somebody who pieces it together. I say this is a collaborative effort because it's very important what the other people, what the protagonists contributed, and Marianne, but ultimately
the voice is yours. Oh, well, at least the overall stitching together, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's stuff that you can outsource when you have a plan. I'm not saying I didn't have a plan.
No, you did.
I'm saying when you have a plan that you can easily outsource that, but I didn't have the luxury to outsource it. There's no budget for giving this to an editor and say piece it together. So this is just also, and then audio cleaning up and that kind of stuff. But I enjoyed it. This is just an incredible privilege to actually do it sort of in that way, because it's not done that way even at the very small, low budget scale. Even at the low budget scale, they have a couple of people in video or audio post production. And Trady's gonna tell Solus that
you didn't mention it. Yeah. Well, there's obviously lots of people that are part of it. So that
well, this is actually a running joke because Solus is. It was wonderful to meet Solus as well. She was also in San Francisco with us at Linden Lab and at High Fidelity. And Solus is another person actually that told me she was really scared because people know her in Second. She's well known in Second Life. She does wonderful clothing, and she's also now well known in Sansar. And Sansar is a very small group, and nobody knew how she looked like in the physical world. And she said, that caused her quite a bit of anxiety. She consented to all this, but then of course, it's a long time between consenting of being in front of a camera and before the film comes out, and then you have a lot of time to kind of think about this and maybe come to the conclusion, crap, I shouldn't have done that, because now people know how I look like, and they may have had a different I don't know.
That comes back down to that trust. That comes down to that trust of you too, right? In that process, that through all this material, you're not going to make those fears come true even that much more, right?
Correct. But with her specifically, she specifically said it's really how I look like. That I am a woman who is 55. I hope I get her age right at least. That I'm not like a young woman. I am a mother, a grandmother, and so that kind of thing. Because this goes to, and again, Tom and Trady, we talk a lot about deception in the film too. That this is a common accusation of Second Life, like, oh, everybody's sort of lying and deceiving, and you don't know who anybody is. And when the movie with Gentle came out, Logging to Life, I remember there was one press event where some journalist said, or they wrote about it actually. They wrote and here comes Gentle, who is her avatar is like a stereotypical cliche.
She's in the audience, in the back row, of course.
Yeah, I see her. She may remember that. I mean, there was this stuff, where it's condescending to say the least.
Yeah.
Because we are so, it's like, oh my God, look at her. How dare she make her avatar look like that? Okay, and so that's a fear that I can completely respect. But we need to push against it. Again, we have the right to express ourselves the way we want to.
Absolutely. And I think that goes, that gets, I think, at the heart of a lot of Tom and Karen's research, right? That idea of that agency you get by your avatar and what it looks like and what it means to you and what that means to that identity. And thus the part of the title that I messed up, that avatar is me, right? Regardless if it's a lizard or an idealized human
or a super gecko over there.
Yeah.
Some gecko over there on the right, stage right.
Yes, love the cape.
But it's again, it opens the curtain to some nastiness in mankind about this, about how we are conditioned to think in these categories, almost like, okay, you look at the clock, oh crap, now I'm 75, now I'm supposed to wear a gray skirt and sit at home and don't go to dance anymore, stuff like that. That's really what comes out in all some of these responses, and that's why I'm so happy that the responses on YouTube that can also be extremely nasty. Actually, I got a fun comment the other day on an older Second Life video where somebody quoted, that's actually pretty funny, somebody said, put on YouTube, oh my God, this video proves that God is dead.
It sure was right. Okay, no. Yeah. Obviously, I think any... and you could say in some ways that's sort of some of the magic of Second Life too, right? Like YouTube has its own magic with the user-generated content, and I think that brings out both those in the comments who will pour out their love, and those in the comments who just are, out to hate and put the discouraging things. And you certainly can run the whole gamut. Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, somebody also posted on one of the trailers, and I engaged that person a little bit back and forth. He said, "It's so sad that these poor people who have such hard lives in the physical world also have such crappy avatars." Oh God! It's also a little bit hilarious. But we don't know. I mean, that might be, And then I went back and forth, and I said, what are you trying to do? And so, I'm not trying to offend. And so, but look,
you're at least being judgmental,
yeah, but,
if nothing else.
But you don't know. This could be, this is the problem here.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a 12-year-old who means well, who is just, he was maybe commenting on high fidelity video games, and he says, "Oh, I wish they had a better rendering engine. If they're like confined to, I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
We shouldn't judge. That's what I learned from Shyla the Super Gecko. Just reserve judgment, and. Hello, Pookie. Here's Pookie, who wouldn't visit me. And Pookie has a house in 114 Harvest in Sanser, but...
And I noticed that you used the variant of the "Would you like to date my avatar?" and heard that was Pookie's voice speaking of.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Pookie there in spirit.
Yeah, that was just a no-brainer to use that for the... Yeah. Pookie has a house in Sansar. There is a house in Sansar. Pookie lives inside.
And if folks have questions for on the film beyond us asking each other questions, I know Drax is not going to be here till the end because he's going to have to go to another thing, so probably another 10-15 minutes, maybe. Or whatever it's up to you, Drax, whenever you have to hop. I think so. I was going to ask about the process. That obviously this was funded by the National Science Foundation, and that's different than if you were, say, doing a more commercial, film. What was it like? I mean, first off, I noticed the fact that obviously it's up online and it's being released because it's another part of the research. So it's that pipeline of putting it out and launching it is very different. And, you talked to that and other things. But.
Yeah. So I was really free to do whatever I wanted, and I told Tom in the beginning. I mean, Tom was sort of my go-to, if you will. I mean, if I want to talk about hierarchy, I always looked at Tom and Trady as my editors, basically in my head, but they said, go ahead and do whatever you want. And then I communicated with them as it sort of ballooned, because it was originally just a slightly extended X-Files,
episode.
Basically.
Yeah,
and then it just, I said, we need to make this feature length, because, again, this opportunity that does not arise again so soon. Again, I also mean, in terms of documentary, people have no idea how hard it is to get anything off the ground. Now, the wonderful plus side is that the tools of production are going down in price. People can afford cameras. You can just go out and shoot. That's what I tell everybody. But greenlighting a documentary of this even modest scope like this one is incredibly hard. And then a subject matter, Second Life. Oh my God, Second Life still around. Not that I tried. I mean, I'm in a very privileged position that Linden Lab sponsors the Draxtor series also, so I can sort of legitimately say, it's not a really like good money or anything, but at least it's not a total hobby. It's it's like not like I can legitimately say to my wife, I'm getting a little bit back, though, compared to other middle-aged men who dye their hair blonde, get a convertible, and go golfing. My hobbies are somewhat acceptable. But the other thing is that, so getting this off the ground, but the other thing, what was I going to say?
Getting this off the ground, you said?
Getting it off the ground is that I have finished another documentary where I just did the music, and it's about surrogate mothers in the Ukraine. This film is done. It was premiered in small circles, and it goes wide in the theaters in October, it's amazing that this even went that far with this subject matter. Very, very sort of obscure subject, very tough subject matter. And I talked to the director many times, and the hoops that she has to jump through, I was like, oh my God, is that awesome that I don't have to do this with this film? I mean, I don't know. I can work in a hierarchy. I can follow directions, not a problem. But I also, I don't know, when you feel passionate about something and you just, it's very difficult for me to keep my mouth shut when I just know it has to be a certain way with this particular subject matter. And I think I would say that I earn a little trust doing these things right.
Yeah, over time, of course. You have that series behind you, and all the. I mean, when was your first reportage? I mean, that was back when you were sort of
the very
journalist.
The very first story was Democracy in Second Life. It was in May 2007. I posted it, but I made it actually in March 2007, and it was about Neufreistadt, where they sort of played democracy. And it also tied in a little bit the presidential race at the time, where, as you recall, the presidential candidates had actually Second Life headquarters. Can you believe it?
Yep.
We were there. We saw it. People, the kids, listen to this. Obama had one.
Before we had flexi prims, we had to indeed. So I think that kind of speaks to the idea that you've had years and years of this this work that showing off just the serious nature or the special parts of a virtual environment like Second Life. And I think that would hopefully build trust to those that. Not only just to those that would be funding your work and bring you in on a project like Tom and Donna did, but those that you would be interviewing, right? That built up trust too.
I'm not suggesting, by the way, that I'm like the only one or shoe-in for this type of work. What I wanted to say is that it's talking to my colleagues, or when I work on other projects, and my next project is about World War II refugees, where I also have a lot of freedom, but I run it by people and I share with them work in progress, and some people also don't do that because that can also be terrifying, and it can be derailing. But it depends. You got to know yourself. I mean, a lot of people are very fragile, and I always advise. I don't say this with judging people, by the way, but if you, in your self-analysis, know that you're fragile in your that you're swayed easily with opinion, then if you embark on something of this scale or something that takes a little longer, I recommend don't show it to anyone. So that's a tough thing too. Like, who do I show it to? Because you want a little bit reflection. If you don't have this editorial process that you sometimes have, where you have to show it money, and then says, I haven't seen anything, please show it to me. I mean, you see this. There's a lot of really well-known examples about shows and TV shows that, or also movies that would have never seen the light of day. You have these anecdotes of first-time filmmakers, often more people develop shows, they always tell the same story. Like, we kind of lied to the head of the network, or we showed him some other stuff, and meanwhile, we would have never ended up on television if we would have been honest what we're working on.
And I think there's another piece to that too, right? As somebody who has had, obviously, somebody who's had folks that are journalists or filmmakers or stuff come to them. I've had that happen, especially in the earlier years of Second Life stuff. And I think the other peril is coming at this already with a bias, right? To your point that, it's Second Life, I want the, give me your train wreck stories, and give me your, all that sort of stuff. I can't, I could tell stories of the folks that, came with that idea of, like, I want to know how space can, send people astray, right?
It's really the thesis. This is really what ails even documentary filmmakers, although they would have more than journalists who have to produce much faster and often are in a time crunch on a day-to-day, where they have to have a predefined thesis going, and then they just fill in the blanks, which is unfortunate, but that's the world we live in. Documentary filmmakers should do it differently, but they sometimes also do it like that, and that's really unfortunate. Actually, Shyla, who is here in the audience, and Cody, who is also in the film, I was approached through Linden Lab. Linden Lab connected me and Tom to a journalist from German public television, who said, I'm looking for people who are physically disabled and can't go out and are in VR. And so that's where you sometimes, the warning signs come on a little bit, because that's already, okay, how are they going to frame this thing? But Shyla and Cody gave an interview, so we'll see what happens. I think she was nice enough, and
I think that's always a risk. For myself, I was part of a panel, kind of brought into a panel at the last minute at the second SLCC that was in San Francisco. So that was way back in 2006. And it was on relationships and sex in Second Life. And I kind of got brought in to fill in the relationships parts, mostly because I have this virtual church, which we can get into a discussion about. That's a whole other piece of me. But what that preceded, though, there was a gal who wrote for Wired magazine in their online sex column, and it proceeded to put it so that for many years, whenever anybody indexed, sex in Second Life or relationships in Second Life, that would come up, and I would get contacted. And I had so many times of trying to explain the broader pictures, and in fact, they would come looking for the, give me the, come to your point earlier, that idea that they'd a strict, obviously, whatever bias, but also that strict outline of, this is the story I need to fit into here, and I'm hoping you can fit that in, and often it was that, the more enticing thing, that might be that least common denominator of where's the, somebody is cheating on somebody in this space, or that kind of thing. And I would often reflect back to some of the more, I would often give them that broader picture, to your point, that the best you can do is try to educate them about the broader merits of the space, which often include very moving moving stories from some of the people that you would, some of the same ecosystem that you would talk about in your film, and you hope that people realize it's more than just their little pit part. That
but oftentimes they have, in day-to-day journalism, the problem is that, as you know, they often people have very precise.
The narrative.
Kind of like the narrative that they go out with, like the editor sits at home, like, okay, it's a slow news day, what do we have? Second Life. What aspect should we cover? Here we go. Or actually, Charlotte's making a good point. Editors change it, or editors actually put even like a spicy headline to it, which can be a problem. Or editors call my friend, the Hamlet James Au from New World Tropes, and ask him for comment, which actually I discussed with a friend just a couple of days ago, because in Sansar's doing really well, but the concurrency numbers are not as high as Lynn and I probably wish they were, and there were a few articles out there that was written about, and so I'm getting completely off a tangent because I'm just saying people have an agenda, and I also have an agenda. Let's just wrap it up with that. I have an agenda. Yeah. I am an advocacy documentarian. Mm-hmm. I have an agenda, and the agenda is to show that these virtual worlds have an enormous power to bring us together, to give much more meaning to ours and other lives, to connect and make the world like the Star Trek universe minus the bad aliens. In other words, we're all going to get along because we all sort of transcend barriers. That's how I feel. So that's what I bring across. It's not an investigation. I'm not talking about. Tom actually also he said that a few times in our interviews, where I asked him, are you not worried about the addiction factor? And I think Tom, I'm paraphrasing you, says, yeah, of course, there's an addiction factor, but that's been written about all the time.
Yeah.
So why do we have to kind of dump more stuff into that balance? Let's balance it out. Let's level the balance sheet here with other stories, and then that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, and I think those, again, to me, those are the least common denominator narratives, right? The addiction, the betrayal, that's not what makes this special, and what, as you said, that, and I would always go to the parable that stuff happens on the internet, that stuff happens in the physical world, that, that's nothing new, right? That's nothing new. So,
actually, the funny thing is,
Go on.
No, I just actually yesterday I talked about this in Sansa with a new friend, and he said, like, isn't it talking about Star Trek? And then he says, yeah, Star Trek is all about bringing the world together and just look at us as humans. But at the very end, everything is led by a British guy who drinks Earl Grey all day long. So it's like,
depending upon your captain, right? But,
that's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, he's just. I know. Janeway was awesome. No, but Picard. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. But yeah, no, I agree. I think, I guess I would pick the Star Trek universe any day, I guess, over the Star Wars one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To live in.
Actually, the Star Wars. Now we can talk another couple hours because I think that plays actually into very, very. There's no imagination actually. I know I'm gonna get death threats now. But where's the imagination in the Star Wars narrative? It's just how we've always lived. Star Trek is much more revolutionary actually.
So there's a couple of questions that kind of came up in regards to Trady had asked, what was your favorite moment in the process?
My favorite moment in the process was, there's a whole bunch, but one of the craziest was really those lucky little things. We were in San Francisco. I'm watching the clock. I'm going to have a hard stop in 15 minutes. But so we arrived in San Francisco. Cody, who is in a wheelchair, and his caregiver, Cece, arrived separately. We have in our calendars to meet at High Fidelity. Everybody has the address. Everybody arrives independently at High Fidelity. We have a private sit-down with Philip Rosedale at maybe it was 10 a.m. I don't recall. And so I drive around the corner, I see Marianne, I get like, oh, Marianne, I'm always super early. Say, hey, Marianne, where can I park? And she says, I don't know. I go drive around the block a couple more times. They go, oh, crap, I'm never going to find parking. And then I go, okay, so I'm going to drive into this lot here. It's $20. Okay, let's just do it. Let's drive in there. I come out, I walk down the street. I'm looking at my clock. I'm like, yeah, we still have time. I see Cody going around the corner with his wheelchair. I see Philip coming with a driver. Driver drops him off in front of the building. Philip steps out. Cody comes in with the wheelchair. Goes, Philip! And Philip turns around, and that's in the movie. Nothing. This stuff is like you don't. And so it's because Philip is Cody's total hero. I mean, you know, he's the hero for many of us. He's the God, and we pray at the church, right? Is that the church that you run?
There is, I think, there's still an old group, right? The church that I run? No, that's not the church I run. But, I mean, you're free to worship as such there if you wish. It is a non-denominational thing.
Okay.
More for the architecture than the religious aspect, but, you know, you're free to do whatever.
So I could go to your church and then still pray at the...
Yes, you could put a photo of Philip if you want up there, yeah.
That's cool. That sounds like a fun church. Yeah, and so that was just really cool.
Yeah, that serendipity of everything coming together in the same way that it would be if you were in Second Life, right? The idea that you might stumble upon people just wandering around, but to duplicate that in the physical space is, you know. But
you know what? It's favorite moment. You know, it's actually. When I think about what is the favorite moment, this was sort of a lucky coincidence that is kind of cool, like a cool anecdote where you know for the DVD extra track. But since I just see Shyla, I cannot single out any moment. I mean, there's so many moments. I talked with Lady. We're in different time zones, but sometimes she sleeps late, and then we have an overlap. And I mean, it's just like when I talk with Lady, it's like I'm just enlightened, and I'm growing in my sort of like grasping of humanity. Same with Shyla when I visited Shyla. Just so many moments. Yeah. Tom and I driving through rural California.
Oh yeah, that's a road trip. That's a road trip film in and of itself, right?
Oh yeah, that's coming. Tom is played by Brad Pitt.
And you?
I don't know. There's
Are you the character actor? If he's
what is that film, The Disaster Artist, where with I just keep.
Another question too, in some ways, is the other side of that. Like, what was the biggest challenges during the process? I mean, obviously we talked about time zones and all that. I think that's always a thing when you're corralling people. But in the process, what were some of the big challenges?
Biggest challenge is really logistics. It really is. I was saying James Franco because somebody pointed out that James Franco in that movie really looks like me. In The Disaster Artist. The logistics are really insane. They're always crazy with filmmaking. I think people who don't work in that field, they generally don't know how difficult this is. But like I said, even in a very low budget film, you have different people managing different aspects. And again, I don't want to paint myself as this superhero who did it all, but I did not hand off a lot of like the logistical management. Who shows up where? What else do we need?
Yeah, that was all you.
Is incredibly difficult, and also because we switch between Second Life and real life all the time, so that kind of continuity is very difficult. There's a whole bunch of little continuity mistakes, if you will. Nobody's going to notice them. But so that is a huge challenge. It's really constant, and you're constantly thinking about, did I forget something? And then of course time zones. Somebody pings you when you get up. Somebody pings you when you wake up in the middle of the night, and you make the mistake of looking at your incoming, and somebody says, "Oh, I got to do it like this," or time difference, or change, or I can't show up, or Also, we had a huge amount of sets. Marianne managed those sets. She built those sets. So without Marianne is just totally together, and we work very, very well together because we have very similar follow through. I guess really the key. Yeah, but this is one of those things where right now I say like I don't want to do this again ever. Seriously, but I know exactly. Like next week, I'm going to say, oh, I gotta do the next one. Yeah. And I am doing the next one, and the next one has nothing to do with Second Life. Actually, that's these World War II refugees who come from a little village in Poland where my mother was born. So there's a personal aspect.
Is that a personal project, or is that funded by somebody?
That is funded by the survivors, and I pitched it to them, and they said, yeah, we want to do it. So again, it's very low budget, and you know then. Somebody would go like, okay, you have 50, 85-year-olds that live all over the world. Is that not a little bit daunting? If somebody were to ask me that question, I'm going to say, no, it's not. It's easy peasy. I just did a movie in Second Life.
Yeah. Though to be fair, their technology levels may not be the same, so getting content from them remotely probably not be as easy.
No. I that's there's travel involved as well, but I just mean
yeah. This is old hat in that regard. That it's another back on the horse to that process.
If you ever worked with Tom Bukowski and Trady Felicimo, anything. I know. I see. I just.
That's either really good or really bad. I don't know.
I just like to see how fast it takes Trady to type something.
Yeah. I know we're kind of coming up on the time before you have to jump, right? So a couple people put it into comments in various ways, but that whole like, what is your like next hope for this piece, right? Like, is it that you want it to go to Sundance? Is it that you want it to like?
Oh yeah, this is interesting. So at some point during the process, we got I don't know how it started, but everybody goes like, hey, how about festivals and stuff like that? And somebody mentioned Sundance, and it was interesting, and everybody was like, oh my God, Sundance, and everybody was talking almost like, oh, we're at Sundance. And I tried to like curb expectations a little bit, like say, hey guys, these festivals, there's 50,000 submissions. I was at Sundance once. Luckily, there was a film that actually was accepted, but there was a total fluke. So please, let's focus on other things here. Let's focus on the grassroots, one step at a time. But now, actually, Shyla compiled a whole list of festivals, and I will submit it to all the festivals. There's a bunch of disability-focused festivals, and I'm going to submit it to every one, not exclusive to the disability, but really to every one. And I'm going to do that. But also a grassroots. Again, this is where I come from. That's where also I feel comfortable. Really talking to people individually and getting sort of a snowball system. And that's actually my plea, what I wanted to say today. Please, everyone who's present here who enjoys this film, send it to at least one person in your circle of friends, family, colleagues, former colleagues, who are skeptics of Second Life. Send them a nice email. Say, hey, Jim, John, Jason, Sally, and Vanessa. I know you think I'm insane with my obsession with these cartoon people, but here's something that, if you have the time, just give it a watch and tell me what you think. Everyone, just do it with one person that you have somewhat not disengaged, but maybe there's a person who you're still good friends, but you avoid this particular topic. I certainly have people like that. Or even I, as the Energizer Bunny, who always talks about this, I have people where I just like, okay, for peace sake, I'm not going to mention it anymore. But with this one, I'm going to send it. I'm going to bombard people with it. pushing it out to everyone, and yeah. And last word on this, I had an encounter at the Munich Film Festival where we were too late to submit to that the documentary film festival in Munich. I met two young girls. I don't say girls; they were women. They were 22. Not the other guy. But I am old. Everybody's old. You feel like you know you get older when you call 22-year-old women girls. But these two women were organizers for the documentary film festival. And I did a presentation about high fidelity, weirdly enough, with a Munich friend who was in high fidelity. They came to me afterwards and said, wow, this is fabulous stuff. And I said, yeah, you know, I'm working on this documentary. It's actually based in Second Life, which is sort of the predecessor to Phil Gross, who's the founder, blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, yeah, I heard about it. They were really open-minded. Mm-hmm. They were really interested, and they saw it, and they loved it. We were too late for submission, but that was so incredibly urging to that this generation was not. They were not. Nothing was tarnished with some sort of weird flying penises or whatever other means. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think, as you said earlier, there's been a resurgence of positivity, which is good in reference to folks looking at some of these, heads-up display VR spaces, and looking back, or I wouldn't say looking back, looking parallel, but looking to Second Life as, this predecessor and this space that's still there. So I mean, I think that's a good thing that's been happening, and I think. Many of us, I mean, obviously you have your film, and then many of the folks in the audience who are part of like Nonprofit Commons or part of other projects that have work that revolves around Second Life, including obviously Tom and Drady, that getting the word out, I think the more that we all outreach, things like this and our own work, like that only benefits the whole ecosystem. Of those.
We all need to. I know that I can be annoying with this constant drumbeat, and I know that maybe sometimes I rub people the wrong way when they feel like I criticize what they do. But and not everybody has an extrovert personality like I have. The fact of the matter, though, is what you guys are doing, and what we all do is incredibly important, and we all owe it to not only ourselves but the entire community to constantly, outside of the insular wonderful circle that we have, we need to find ways to communicate this outward, to advocate. Constant advocacy is incredibly important, and I want to be an ally of this group. So I mean, I tell Gentle often, give me a couple of weeks heads up if you want, for example, some streaming or whatever, like with the mental health day.
The symposiums.
I'm happy to jump in there and take advantage of the little audience that I have, and so. But that's apart from that. It's really we must not shut down about what we do here. We need to communicate it outward all the time.
Yep. I agree too. That we're all sort of stronger together in that way. It sort of, it validates the whole if the more that each of us share out, And the reasons why we do this, the reasons that not only why those of us who are doing professional work in one way or another in this space, why that's important, but even why the community and the people and the space in general has merit and validity. Beyond, like you said, folks who may come to the table already with this Second Life. I don't have time for a First Life, so I think it's important to kind of keep sharing out that, so to hopefully push past that. So any final thoughts before you hop?
So it's already 7 o'clock. I actually was supposed to do a live interview with a science fiction author today, but that actually got pushed to next Friday. I would like to invite everyone here to Sansar. let me take this opportunity to pitch Sansar in 30 seconds. Sansar is really cool. Sansar is not Second Life. Sansar will not replace Second Life, okay? So, here we go. Sansar is not VR only. Sansar is desktop as well. It's 50-50. You can do whatever you want. Headset not required. Powerful PC, yes. There is no Mac because Apple dropped the ball on virtual reality when the headsets came out. I completely understand why Lindblad didn't waste any time to develop for Mac because it's a waste of time. The Macs can't run the headsets. That's Apple's problem. They made a choice, so that's why there's no Mac. I'm a Mac person. I bought a PC and it works. Sansar is great. Sansar is developing. We have a community where some people here in the audience are part of. iSky, for example, has a house in my place called 114 Harvest. We welcome everyone. We have a noob hour every Thursday at 8 a.m. And we have Atlas hopping every Saturday at 11 a.m. where we do a field trip and we answer any question. There's a lot of Lindens that join us. There's a very friendly crowd. I've seen only 2 griefers so far. Maybe I don't know what that's a function of. But Sansar is great, and there's opportunity for advocacy and for nonprofits and for just advocating for good causes, and that's why I would encourage everyone to check it out and put sort of like a little sign down, and say, here I am. Land is free, it's huge, a lot of people to help, a lot of stuff for free that you can put together, and Trady's saying that people Linden promoted Atlas hopping well, as they should. Atlas hopping with Strawberry and myself is bringing in more people than this weird movie Ready Player One or whatever that. Yeah, I have to tap myself on the shoulder a little bit every once.
Yeah, no, I've seen those too. I mean, I think that also speaks to the power of media to be able to kind of share that story regardless of what we're talking about, Sansar or Second Life.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is this is slightly related. I don't want to stop here with unrelated stuff. Actually, Safia, who is also as I use
Safia Wittershams.
No, Safia Vesta. She's
different Safia. Sorry,
different Safia. She's very active, and she's I'm just saying, because I have the opportunity to be here, don't dismiss, and don't be afraid to check it out, and don't be afraid to start a place there that advocates for what you're advocating for, because it's about branching out. It's about putting your shingle. Is the shingle the right word?
Yep.
Your shingle up in a different town.
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly. I mean, we've at least here at Nonprofit Commons, we've talked about that idea of that platform agnostic and exploring things. Would that be? I mean, I know you're talking about Sansar. We've also talked about Open Simulator and some web-based virtual worlds and things like virtual spaces and things like that. But I think it always is good to kind of explore and figure out what makes sense. I mean, it is relationally, Second Life and Sansar are different. I think at least in the content creation pipeline aspect of things, obviously the user-generated content easiness that can happen here is a bit more of a almost like a regular game development process there. Not that there isn't. Not that there isn't.
I know what you're saying. The biggest difference is you cannot build in world in real time, and it's the prim-based system is genius, and it brought a lot of people in they've never thought that they could build stuff, and that is super important. And Sansar doesn't have that. That's correct, but it's not nowhere near as complex as a game development engine or something. I'm not suggesting that you can just go in there and there's third party programs where you can build stuff, but if you want to put up a little place, there's free stuff, templates, the whole thing
in the marketplace and stuff.
A little I'm just suggesting, I'm really surprised that nonprofit commons is not there yet. You can put an amphitheater together in no time. You got a place that's 16 square kilometers large, you know, and so it's, yeah.
Yep, no, I agree. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm all up for it. Like, I am certainly, like I said, a fan of a platform agnostic angle. For me, as my shirt says on my avatar, it's really about that kind of user and the community piece of it, and what we all want to do in these spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I love lists, but I also love to check things off the list as fast as I can.
Yep. So, I don't know if there are any other things you want to share before. I don't know. Obviously,
no. I'm going back to smaller pieces or shorter pieces. Not right now. So I'm also not taking a break because I'm doing an SL15B video, which is commissioned by Linden Lab. So this is something that was commissioned by them, but I wrote the concept. So they greenlit the concept right off the bat. They didn't make any change, which is really awesome. And so this is a video that will run on their channel, but it comes out around SL15B, and it's targeted primarily. Well, it's targeted towards making us feel really good, but it's also targeted towards the press that has possibly forgotten Second Life. So this is what we're trying to do. Yeah, that's the next thing, and then I'll go back to semi-monthly shorter Second Life videos. Zinnia, ping me via email if your students want a tour in Sansa. We do twice a week.
Yep, and I'm sure even on a future nonprofit commons one. You bring up this kind of an interesting thing as like a media maker, right? I mean, obviously you're your own independent media maker person, but you still have to balance that with the fact that you have commissioned work. So, you know, it's this, like, you're here in Second Life or in Sansar and whatever those places are, but then sometimes you're also, like when you're talking about the Linden Lab, like they're also, like, the platform itself is something that you want to talk about, the people in it, but then sometimes also you're being commissioned, and then that becomes a different way, or a different how you're approaching it. Does it change how you approach it?
Yes, it does. This is very scripted, this video with a voiceover, but because the cool thing is that with them, I'm in a position where, like I said, I mean, I came up with a concept, and they say, okay, that's fine. That's incredible. Every time I think about this, I go like, whoa, I really, that's a jackpot right there. I talk with my friends and colleagues every day, and they go like, oh my God, I want to shoot myself, because I was sitting in these editorial meetings, and I have 3-4 people above me, and they make the stupidest suggestions, and I got to sit there and be like, yeah, great idea. And so, for the most part, with in the Second Life context, I have a reputation where they trust me. It's not that sometimes there's still hair-raising meetings every once in a while, but when they ask me to do a straight-out promotional piece like this one, it's promotional. It celebrates the community, but the purpose is promoting Linden Lab. And again, I mean, this is we can talk about this for hours, because the Drax files, I don't see them as ads for Linden Lab. Linden Lab can use them to promote who they are, but I see them as ads for a creative life, and it just happens to be here. So anyways, but of course there's a difference between this particular video and the other. So what I'm saying is, the privilege that, for the most part, I don't have to fight against dumb marketing people is incredibly rewarding. It yeah.
So that kind of goes back to having, if your client is good and they trust you. Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, if people, I'm not gonna name numbers here about the money, but let me tell you, I could probably make more money if I were to pick strawberries in California. Seriously, but I am in a position where I can afford to do this. No, but the point is that people always go like, "Whoa, you know, this is such sort of glamorous whatever," and then he's also. I mean, I get that sometimes. I get some this criticism or envy, I guess. I just wanted to put this in context. This is very little. The paid stuff is very very little money, but I think everybody who is in a position of choice. Some people don't even have a choice, and I certainly don't want to diminish the labor exploitation when I use this strawberry picking analogy. It's just purely of numbers wise. You know, this is a whole different problematic issue where labor is being exploited. I'm not being exploited. I didn't want to suggest that. It's my choice, but I have a choice, and a lot of people in my circle of socioeconomic circumstances also have a choice.
Hong Kong,
They make
after so many into something.
They make choices of
Okay, I was remaining silent
buying
while
more
I
stuff,
wondered what was going on.
getting
Yeah,
more
choice between Draxtor.
consumer goods, or getting into debt about stuff that is not of value to me and my wife, for example. So these very specific decisions that we are making enable me to continue doing this, and I think it's important and it's rewarding.
Yep, I think, you know, that's probably the plight of a lot of creatives. You know, you're making choices to continue to do that work.
Yeah, and also let me say, because if you know, I'm very thankful. I'm extremely thankful that, and I take it very seriously, because I'm not sort of like sitting here and go like, well, cool, this is a pretty cool deal, sort of like I can just do this stuff. I know how rare this is, and I'm not going to sit here and go like, this is possible for everyone. It's not. And if people are stuck in crappy jobs, or even very creative people are their life is being sucked out of them in jobs that are creative adjacent, or where they have to jump through so many hoops and then sort of sell their soul or whatever. I'm super lucky. It's you know, I'm not sitting here like, whoa, you know, this is all like, I'm not sitting here like Mitt Romney saying, oh, I did it all by myself, and we were so poor, we actually had a ironing board as a breakfast table. Oh, so that's how poor we were. Oh, wait, lived in a $20 million apartment paid by my dad. No. You know, you got me getting off a tangent because
No, I understand it though.
I'm gonna wrap it up. So this is.
I made similar decisions, so.
Right. So we have
differently, but yeah.
Yeah, but we have to. The thing is that we have to be extremely honest to ourselves about this stuff. There is a huge difference between people who have a choice and people who don't have a choice. And the worst thing that we can do in this society, in this world that we live in now, in this really unfair, uneven playing field, is to say, well, you know, why don't they just stop what they're doing and just follow their dreams? Okay, if you're a strawberry pea, going back to that, because I now realize that's really not a good comparison. If you're a strawberry pea, you don't have that choice. You gotta pick those strawberries or you're gonna die. You gotta pick those strawberries or your kids are gonna starve. Had a dispute with a guy who lives here in the house. Not a dispute, but I was actually taken aback. He had a package being delivered, and he was out of town, and he said to me, hey, can you take the package when the guy comes from FedEx? So like, sure. We live in an apartment, and so nobody rings the doorbell. And a couple days later, I see him and I say, "Hey, your package never." And then he says like, "Oh yeah, these guys are so stupid. They delivered it to the wrong house and they'll wait another couple days." And I go like, "Yeah, but you know, these guys are under a lot of pressure. You know, it's not. Is it such a big deal for you to wait another couple of days?" And he goes like, "Yeah, I know, these guys work for like 50 cents per package delivered, but I mean, come on, they're not standing there with a gun to their head and forcing them to do this job." And I was about to say, well, actually they do.
But metaphorically, they may be in their life, right?
Well, there absolutely are, because that's how exploitation works. Exploitation works because there are people so desperate that they have to take the job in order to survive, and it's such a arrogant, out of touch, privileged position to say, "Well, why don't they take the job then?" Dude, they take the job because there is no other opportunity for them, and the exploitative employer knows that. That's how it works, and that's why Kanye West, sorry, I don't know if you're watching this, that's why slavery is not a choice. All right?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, it's unbelievable. So,
yep. No,
somebody might take offense to what is Trady trolling me again here?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. No. It certainly is a complex thing, and yeah, for those that can choose to make choices.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. We got to differentiate. There's some people who are sitting in really posh positions, and they have everything going for them, and they're constantly complaining about, "Oh my God, it's really hard to be an executive." No, it's really not. You can go somewhere else. So again, I mean, even like in, for example, Silicon Valley jobs, you also got to really be very nuanced. Some people can leave, some others can't. But you know, my empathy is limited towards people who got fired by Cambridge Analytica. I have very limited empathy for them. Not for the whistleblower. I mean, that's important stuff, but
yeah, but the choices to be there versus somewhere else. But yeah, we can go down a rabbit hole there.
Yeah, we certainly could. And Thomas going like, that's. Did Drax say he has to be somewhere? That's how it always goes.
But definitely, I think where I think in some ways to bring this back around, like I have always found interesting, and this kind of goes back to that Second Life and some of its other magical special sauce things, or like that creativity and that anybody can create. You know, we were just talking about that a bit before, and I think sometimes because of the choices or lack of choices that folks have had to make in their lives, sometimes that ability to be able to take time to create has been off the table for a lot of people. Whether you have to be even, you know, whether it's because, you know, you have to, you know, whatever you have to do for work, you have kids, maybe, you know, you're a single parent, all those sort of things. And I think I've often found it very interesting that, you know, that's another magic part of this Second Life in that way, that people have kind of reinvigorated and rediscovered that joy of creating that maybe got pushed away because life did not afford that for whatever reasons.
Yeah. And that is actually, again, I mean, I know you didn't mean it as a criticism, but I actually openly said that to Linda Knapp too, and I think Tom as well, when we were
I've
there.
said it to Ebby personally. In his office, or at Linda Lab's office.
That is good. That's good, because the point is here that the mere fact that you can build with Prims in real time, in world together, is creating an opportunity for people to see themselves as more as simply the quote unquote consumer of something. So, and there's so much evidence, and everybody we talk to has that same story. Oh yeah, I didn't think I was capable of this, but then I just did it and go like, hey, wait a minute. You know, all these stories where people are like, I was never encouraged to do anything. creative,
Yeah.
and I was.
I can't create. Yeah.
I can, and that's. I labeled myself. I was labeled, and then I labeled myself because people labeled me that way. And here comes Second Life, and they open it all up. So that is what is certainly regrettable at this stage of the game, that Sansar does require other third-party products. But I talked to Torley, and I wish I had recorded that, because, again, please give Sansar a try, because you can actually start with a template, and you can play around just with light, and you will be amazed. And it will. We live in the paradigm is shifting. There's things coming online that make it very easy to create and import stuff. I created an entire world in Sansar made with Paint 3D. Paint 3D is built into Windows 10. It's like you just draw and then you pull it out and it becomes 3D. And then you just import that into Sansar. You have this sort of cartoonish world. It's called Meet the Draxies. So in other words, we're going back to that, but as regrettable as it is that the Prim system, and actually Ebba said, who's going to prevent somebody to build like a Prim-based world in Sansar where you can just build it in real time together. So that's
and there are, to be fair, I mean, not in the Sansar scenario, but even in things that are based on Unity has kind of realized that, and other people have stepped up to build that kind of collaborative creation. Start to build on that, right? I think people are getting the idea that there's something to be said for that, like making that not just the barrier to entry to be easier, but like if you can empower people through creating they're going to stick. They're going to find something out of it. They're going to find personal value.
Yeah, but then they will tell you that 0.1% creates, and we have data on that, as we were told by Björn Lindenlau. That's that's their calculation. Yeah. Okay, now I really gotta get going.
Yes. Well, I mean, thank you, Drax. These conversations are always great. Like when we get to have them, and again, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, Rhiannon, I really appreciate that you say that, because somebody in the audience just said that the conversation when you're sitting with me in a car for 8 hours driving through California, it's apparently not that much fun.
You just need me in the backseat.
Being misquoted. All I said was that I'd been with you in a car for 8 hours. I said nothing more. You're the one who has all the tape. But I just put this in the text chat, but just to say it in voice as well. 3 weeks from today, Trady and I are going to do talk here at Nonprofit Commons about the research, and we can talk more about the film as well. So Drax, hopefully you can come as well, and we can continue this 3 weeks from today on the 22nd.
That's fantastic. I know Lear had been chatting with you, and that will get into that'll get us to be able to dive, I think, deeper into some of these things about identity and agency that we're talking about. It's at the kind of the root of some of this stuff. But yeah, so just because I pulled it up earlier, that's the URL to the video that Drax did for Nonprofit Commons. So for those of you who are new to Nonprofit Commons, you can watch one of Drax's other small pieces, and that gives you an idea here. In some ways, there's some overlap, because there's certainly, I think, where we're focusing on these social good various things, that there's some community pieces that you'll see, and so and hopefully we're kind of an open and safe space kind of community too. So there's offices around that are various nonprofits or folks that are doing social good things, and then obviously we meet every week. But so hopefully come back for Tom and Trady, and then but the other weeks whenever you want. And if anybody wants to present on their projects, or even if you're a creative that wants to talk about what you do in your work or teach in some way, then let me know, or let others know here too. There's room for that as well. So, but Drax, thank you as always for the conversations. I
gotta go to 114 Harvest in Sansar now. I wish I wish there would be a simple teleport.
I
Don't
know.
we all?
Thus the metaverse. Where's my metaverse?
That's the thing. I mean, again, I hear you loud and clear, and I wish there would be, but that's
Someday.
the metaverse does not work in the economic system we have.
Yes,
That's my thesis. I mean, it doesn't
Yes.
work.
No, it's true. It's true because back in the day, long ago.
Bye, Tom. Tom,
Bye.
wait a minute. I just went. Tom needs to go. Tom, I forgot to tell you. I booked a flight coming into Long Beach. we need to bring the band back together and drive to Solon. It's almost like that Lost. From Lost. I mean, Lost. I'm such a big fan.
Yes.
I enjoy
Yes.
it. And then when he comes and says, "We gotta go back to the island."
Yes. We have to go back.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I always think these. I think these. One of your here. It's had a great time these conversations. So, thank you again, Drax, for being that. And if you're back in a few weeks when Tom is here, that's fantastic too. You can lend more of the Drax. And otherwise, you put across what your next couple things are. So let me reshare your links from your channels, so folks probably know where to find you anyway. But let me put those back in here too.
See, stranger. See, now I can't stop talking about this.
A loss?
I'm not against Philip. I'm a big, I respect him very much, but. And we reported from High Fidelity, Draxfiles.com, by the way, weekly podcast. Last podcast was with Trady. Next one is a fascinating one also. Subscribe at Draxfiles.com. But stranger, I just want to say that everybody has a different opinion. I really think that Philip is a visionary, but High Fidelity at this point in the game is just too complicated. It's not an improvement over anything. It pains me to say that. And I know he has a lot bigger, and I know probably Philip's laughing at me, goes like, Sansa, they want to be WordPress, but I want to be the web. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. What does prime time mean, though? The thing is, my personality is such, I don't have time to wait for prime time. I want to go in now and I want to do things. And I encourage everyone, that's what I said, come in yesterday. Come and put your shingle there and say, here I am, let's do business. And by business, I don't mean economic business. I mean, here I have a cause, I want to be there.
And I think
High Fidelity is suffering from a extremely complicated interface that makes Second Life look like a walk in the park. And I know it's all temporary, but the problem is people don't have that time. People go in, they check it out. I mean, this is what ails Second Life to this day.
Yep.
People go in, they still have 130,000. Actually, they have 350,000 people. This is true because I checked that with Linden Lab for the SL15B video. I have to look at that. I think it's 350,000 people per month in Second Life sign up to this day. Why do they leave? There's many reasons, but one reason is certainly the complexity of the interface, no doubt.
Yeah, I think, and this conversation also comes up in Open Simulator because it's plagued by the same problems where the viewers are intertwined.
Stranger is making a good point here. Also, that's absolutely true. Linden Lab is not. Linden Lab has deeper. They don't have endless amounts of money, but they have revenue coming from Second Life, and they're very smartly investing this. In my opinion, they're doing it in a smart way. I know for a fact that they're not abandoning Second Life. If anybody who's paying attention, they know how much they invest in Second Life at the same time. They put an animesh together. They have bento going. I mean, it's unbelievable what they do. They put everything in the cloud. All this information is out there. So they're not milking Second Life, right? So that's a myth. But the fact of the matter is, it's true, stranger. Linden Lab has a little bit more leeway, a little bit more wiggle room to experiment. High Fidelity doesn't have that. They're playing with other people's money. Philip is very good in making people feel comfortable with the money that they entrusted with. So he has probably a longer leash than other Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, but still, there's a lot of pressure. One thing, sorry, a lady is asking in Sansar, can the desktop only talk with VR people? Lady, let me say that if you're in VR, so your head is in the goggles, you can see the desktop chat, which is very cool. You have a floating window in front of you that sees what people chat in the local chat. So you can be constantly, if you're in VR, you can always be in the headset, right? But you see the text appear on a little floating window. So that way we communicate while I'm in the headset, for example. Well, you just hear them. They just talk. Lady talking, voice interaction is just like here. You know, you're typing, I'm talking. It's the same thing.
I think, yeah, it's not quite as accessible in all particular variations. So, I mean, that I think that's why, like, iSky had some of those questions that you brought up in the film.
The problem with iSky is that's a problem for every platform. The only advantage that Second Life has for iSky is that you have something like Dragon Speak, you have other things where you can easily interface and you can easily type out what people say. This is going to happen in Sansar in no time. That's no big deal. It just needs to integrate those existing things. This is not something that was built into Second Life at all. This is when people use voice in Second Life, they have the opportunity. If they have Dragon Speak, they can types it up for them, right? But the problem here is something with iSky, with her particular situation, is more of a openness and a willingness to incorporate differently abled people. This has nothing to do with the platform per se in my mind. Sure, Sensor is not a fully formed thing, and there's many more features here in SL, but that we have to renegotiate and we need to be mindful of who is joining us. That's on us. I see this with Atlas Hopping. The first time iSky was there, a lot of people didn't know her, right? And so there was one incident, it was like 50 people or so. We get between 20 and 50 people roughly at the field trips in Sansar. And we are on this planet, like a cool sci-fi type planet, and somebody was saying, "Hi, iSky, nice to meet you. Where are you from?" And she didn't respond. Mm-hmm. And I was a little out on the side, and then I saw two other people like, "Hey, she's not responding. What's happening?" And in voice, right? And then I went in there and said, "Hey, she can't hear us. We have to type it." Oh, right. Okay. So, how would that be different here? How would that be different? It wouldn't. Okay? So we need to slow down. And that's what I learned with the documentary. We need to slow down. We can't jump to conclusions. We need to, yeah. So, what's my point? I'm not sure that Sansar at this point is actually more inaccessible than Second Life is. I really don't.
Does Dragon work with it?
That's the only thing, and that's a matter of a month.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is, I mean, the accessible piece also is that, like, tools that you plug into it so that, it doesn't, I mean, and the tough thing is, I think by nature, and I forgot who brought it up in the chat, I don't know if it was Stranger or somebody else, that there's that native thing that because in a heads-up display, those who are accessing it with a VR headset, there's also other more complex user interface problems that still have yet to be surmounted. Like, how can you interact with some of the ways that we've input text via keyboards or all those sort of things. So text becomes harder to put into the system in that way, right? Because most people are, or edit slower and clunky, or even if you're using a point by whatever while in the heads-up display. So it's kind of got challenges on both ends, right? At this particular point, and that's not just for Sansar. That's for anything that's a heads-up display VR.
It's for anything. It's for anything that uses a headset has that same issue.
Yep.
But
so hopefully that gets surmounted. And I think that's across the board, hoping for, better accessibility recognition in these platforms. And I think, to Tom's point in your documentary earlier, right, like that the tech becomes that focus of the moment. Like it's a different interface, but the interface, those I think across the board, not just in Sansar or High Fidelity, but across the board, some of those challenges, those accessibility challenges, like don't seem to be as high on the list as technical ones, right?
Oh yeah. That's definitely, again, that's totally that sense, and that's a total tragedy. It's not limited to Sansar. I hope that we can make a little dent with this movie. I didn't even mention that. That's definitely a big opportunity to make a little dent to show the tech workers as well, or the people in charge, that this is a large part of their constituency, which they intend to ignore. So they're always going like, we got to build this first, and we sell it, and then we'll think about how to solve it for disabled folks. That's wrong. And again, I mean, we all know, for example, Pathfinder, who I also met several times, and it's a tragedy that people like Pathfinder, who connect the technology with the humans, broadly speaking, are the first ones to go in a tough economic circumstance.
Well, that's probably.
They're not firing a marketing person who makes, I don't know, $300,000 a year, probably minimum, in Silicon Valley. They're not firing her.
I think it's one of the, I mean, among a few other things, but one of the single worst things that they did to sort of cut off your nose to spite your face, in that regard. That if there was anybody, and folks have obviously, who know Pathfinder, like if there was anybody who could not only speak to that connection and the importance and all those various things, John Lester, Pathfinder, certainly could. And I think in a way that was very approachable to all audiences, not just academics or not just, educational research folks.
All right. I really gotta go.
Yes.
It's so awesome. And please take advantage of me. You guys have my email, drax@draxtor.com. Please, if you want to use me, email me. And Punky, if I'm been absent, I'm back on track. I got to run into Sansa right now to help a new guy named Leper, who is wonderful, also with various disabilities that he wouldn't disclose. A wonderful guy who is part of this new community. And then Ice Guy is going to use my Sansa account. It's going to run around as me and doing all sorts of shenanigans. That's how much I trust her. It's probably going to delete my house or something. Which I did in 2008. Another addict.
Oh, everybody has. Or worn something on your head, or.
Oh yeah.
Yes. All the good times. So speaking of your strawberry farmer analogy, there's a farm down the road that I help at. That actually later today I will be helping plant some strawberries. How about that?
Oh, look at that!
You can have it both, Draxtor. You can have both. That's all I'm saying. Okay. All right.
No. I mean, yeah.
I know.
It's all about. Let's repeat here. It's about. Hold on, I got.
Choices and the ability or not there. Well, I understand.
Well, here's the thing.
See, people
No,
are just gonna
it's
stop
actually-
talking.
It's about choices, but it's actually much more. It's about being honest about if somebody has a choice or not. Because again, the people who are exploited, they can't go to like, oh, I'm gonna quit being exploited. Yeah, it's been slavery. It's been around for 200 years. That's enough. I had enough. I'm just gonna go get a job on Wall Street. That's not how it works. Or stuff like when people say, "Oh yeah, black people have been liberated for a long time now. Why are they still not where we are as white people? They must be lazy." This stuff is now being peddled again. This shit. I'm sorry. Use my language. These kind of, now they call, the New York Times calls that the dark web of intellect. I mean, this is not the dark web of intellectualism. That's just bullshit. That's just out of context baloney.
Yes.
Okay.
But the political things could go even deeper, so that won't be this week.
And they should, because life is politics, and everybody who says I'm not interested in politics, you know what? That means only one thing. That means I am so privileged that stuff that happens around me policy-wise doesn't affect me so too. That's what it means.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, it can also mean the other side, that they may not be privileged, but they may not understand that connection yet, which I think that often happens on the other side of the fence. Lower economics. I mean, they may not understand it as politics in that same way, even if it absolutely is.
I'm just saying that when you hear that very often, when somebody, I'm not interested in politics, I'm not discussing politics. I understand when somebody says, I'm very opinionated, and right now I don't want to discuss this with you or my uncle because I want to spare me the grief. That's totally legit, okay? Don't pick your battles. That's important. But when somebody says, "Oh, I'm not interested," I don't care about politics. That's what people in power want. That's their best possible scenario. That you're running around. I don't care, even if you're disenfranchised or just totally like. You don't have the energy to engage, but people who say that with sort of this sort of snooty tone is like, yeah, I don't care. I had that somebody say to me like, oh yeah, Trump, no big deal, he's gone 4 years. This statement.
Oh, we're going down these paths now.
What?
I said we're going down these paths now.
Oh, I thought it's open mic. No, I just want to say, somebody who says that, to be honest with you, that person is incredibly privileged. 90% of my friends, they can't say that because what is done in his name or in his administration is affecting them on a day-to-day basis. They don't have that luxury to say, "Oh yeah, Trump, who cares? He's going to be gone 4 years." That's privilege right there. Okay.
And the reality is that any governmental leader has the power to affect the day in and day out in the now, and then the implications of what that means years from now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's true. I know what you're saying, and you're right. That's actually totally misunderstanding the process to begin with, I guess, when you say something like that.
Well, on the nonprofit side of things, it's tough because we can't directly advocate, right? So you can do advocacy work around issues, but you can't be like, hey, let's talk about X. That's specifically about direct politics stuff. So there's always that.
So if somebody says, okay, when somebody says like, I'm going to take away your health care if you die, I mean that's like, you're shit out of luck because if you choose a lifestyle where, if you choose a lifestyle where your leg is gone, I mean, come on, that's your problem.
You have to. It's the unfortunate things in the way. I mean, ultimately it's around the ways of the rules of things, which we're none of us to control exactly that way, sadly. But then yes, you would tackle those issues. You tackle that deeply on the issue side of things, but you can't directly, you know, lobby or those kind of things, right? So, but I think we should wrap
it's a good
today.
thing that we can't lobby and the other people, the other side can lobby.
I know, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But, yes.
Okay,
I gotta
run. I gotta run. I'm gonna teleport away. Thank you, everyone. I'm always
thank
available.
You, Drax.
Email me. Email is best. In-world messages and note cards are not that great. The note card.
Drax at Draxtor.com, as you say.
Yeah. The note card is in fact the IM. The private IM is actually great because it's email forwarding, and sometimes I go back and forth with a conversation when I'm on the road. That works.
Please.
A note card is like a fax. I don't have a fax machine.
Yeah, and they get capped, and there's all kinds of perils in that regard of losing them. They're not a guaranteed communication.
No.
Yeah. So, but thank you for taking the time here today.
Yep.
Bye all.
Bye.
And thank you everybody for sticking through this. Normally our events only go till 10, and then we go take a little break and then go into mentors meeting. So today it kind of expanded over into that. So, so normally it's 8:30 to 10. But thank you all for being here. And I imagine Mal filmed this, and a little kitty up front. So there'll probably be some archive of this after this, hopefully. So, and feel free to friend me if I friended a few of you. If you want, you can friend me.